Have you ever walked into a place and felt different? A sudden chill, the faint sense that you're not alone, even when there's no one around. Some say it's just your imagination. Others, well, they're not so sure. There are places in this world that hold on to their history. Places where tragedy left its mark, where secrets whisper through the walls. They linger, waiting for someone, brave or perhaps foolish enough to uncover them. America is a land of stories. Some are celebrated, passed down through generations, but others are buried, hidden in the shadows. These are the stories of places where the past refuses to rest. Do you believe in ghosts? By the end of this journey, you might. Or perhaps you'll start searching for them yourself. The Stanley Hotel, Estes Park, Colorado. The Stanley Hotel is a vision of elegance perched high in the Rocky Mountains. Its bright white facade gleams under the Colorado sun, a stark contrast to the eerie tales that surround it. On the surface, it seems like the perfect place for a peaceful getaway, but behind its welcoming doors lies a history steeped in mystery and the unexplained. It's hard to talk about the Stanley Hotel without mentioning room 217. This is where Stephen King, while staying with his wife, had a nightmare so vivid that it changed his career forever. He dreamed of his young son, running through the hotel's endless, twisting hallways, pursued by something malevolent, something unseen. He woke in a cold sweat and spent the rest of the night pacing the room. That one night became the foundation for The Shining. Room 2117 has become infamous. Guests who have dared to stay there report strange phenomena. Lights flicker without warning, as if manipulated by unseen hands. Toiletries are moved, sometimes stacked neatly, while suitcases unpack themselves when no one is watching. A faint floral scent often lingers in the air, believed to be the presence of Elizabeth Wilson, a housekeeper who survived an explosion in the room in 1911. The phenomena extend beyond just one room. On the fourth floor, laughter echoes through the halls, childlike, innocent, but always just out of reach. Guests wake to the sensation of small hands, tugging at their sheets, or the sound of footsteps running above their heads, though there's no floor above to explain it. Then there's the ballroom, a grand, opulent space. It's said that Flora Stanley herself still visits, sitting at the piano she loved in life. Guests have described hearing soft, haunting melodies in the dead of night, only to find the room completely empty. Yet, the piano's lid is often found open, as if someone or something has been playing. Even the hotel staff have their stories. A maintenance worker once described seeing shadowy figures darting between doorways, vanishing as soon as they were spotted. In the dining room, table settings are mysteriously rearranged, and chairs are sometimes found turned to face the windows, as if the unseen guests wanted a view of the mountains. Perhaps the strangest reports come from the basement, where employees often feel they're being watched. Cold spots materialize in the air, and objects have been known to fall without explanation. The sense of unease is so strong that some refuse to go down there alone. The Stanley Hotel is more than just a building, it's a living entity, a place where history is not only preserved, but alive. It draws people from all over the world, those searching for beauty and those searching for proof of the paranormal. But one thing is certain, the Stanley never leaves its visitors unchanged. Some leave with stories to tell, others leave with questions they'll never answer. Would you stay here? Could you stay here? They say the hotel is always welcoming, but sometimes it's not just the living who extend the invitation. Eastern State Penitentiary, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Massive stone walls rise like a fortress in the heart of Philadelphia, casting long, cold shadows over the city streets. Eastern State Penitentiary, once a symbol of revolutionary prison reform, is now a monument to despair and darkness. Built in 1829, its imposing Gothic architecture was designed to intimidate, and the stories contained within its walls are as chilling as its appearance. Eastern State was the first prison in the world to implement solitary confinement. As a means of rehabilitation, prisoners were kept in tiny, windowless cells, with only a narrow slit in the ceiling, the eye of God, to to remind them of divine judgment. They ate, slept, and existed in isolation, forbidden from speaking to guards or fellow inmates. Many of them descended into madness, their minds unraveling in the oppressive silence. Visitors today often remark on the eerie stillness that permeates the crumbling hallways, as if the echoes of those tortured souls linger in the air. One of the most infamous areas is Cell Block 12. The stories here are enough to make even the bravest hesitate. People have reported hearing distant cries and whispers, the unmistakable sound of footsteps following them, and the clinking of unseen chains. Some describe an oppressive weight pressing down on their chest, as if the despair of the prisoners has never truly left. Then there's the story of Al Capone. In 1929, the infamous gangster served time here. But unlike most inmates, Capone's cell was furnished with fine rugs, a desk, and a lamp, luxuries unheard of in a place like this. Yet, even with his wealth and influence, Capone was not immune to the prison's darker side. He reportedly experienced night terrors during his stay, screaming about a ghost named James, a man many believed to be one of the victims of Capone's violent past. The guards weren't spared from the strange occurrences either. In the 1940s, a locksmith was called to remove an old lock from one of the cells. As he worked, he reportedly felt a sudden icy gust of wind, followed by the sensation of being watched. Looking up, he claimed to see shadowy figures swirling around him, their faces distorted in silent agony. The man fled, leaving his tools behind, and never returned to the prison. One of the most unsettling aspects of Eastern State is the feeling that you're never truly alone. Shadowy figures have been spotted darting between the cells, vanishing into thin air when approached. Cold spots materialize without warning, even on the hottest days of summer. Some visitors have even reported seeing full-bodied apparitions dressed in 19th century prison garb, silently staring at them before fading away. The prison's darker reputation has made it a hotspot for paranormal investigators. In one instance, a team left recording equipment overnight in Cell Block 6. When they reviewed the footage, they heard what sounded like a deep, guttural growl, followed by the faint sound of someone sobbing. No one had been in the building at the time. Eastern State Penitentiary is a place where history and the supernatural collide. Its decaying walls hold stories of punishment, despair, and perhaps redemption. It's a reminder of a time when society believed in breaking the human spirit to reform it. And for those who visit, it's an experience they'll never forget, whether they believe in ghosts or not. Would you walk these halls? Some say the spirits here are harmless, trapped in their own cycles of torment. Others warn that once you step inside, you may carry something with you when you leave. Something you can't explain, something you can't escape. The Myrtles Plantation Saint, Francisville, Louisiana. The Myrtles Plantation, nestled among the moss-draped oaks of St. Francisville, Louisiana is often called one of the most haunted homes in America. Built in 1796 by General David Bradford, this stately southern mansion hides a dark history of tragedy, betrayal, and restless spirits that refuse to leave. The plantation's most infamous legend centers on Chloe, an enslaved woman whose story has been passed down through the generations. According to the tale, Chloe was punished by having her ear cut off. After eavesdropping on the family's private conversations, she began wearing a green turban to hide her disfigurement, a detail that has become synonymous with her ghostly sightings. Seeking revenge or perhaps redemption, Chloe allegedly baked a cake laced with poison, intending only to make the family ill. But the plan went horribly wrong. The plantation owner's wife and two of their children died after eating it. Chloe was discovered and, according to legend, hanged by fellow slaves. Her spirit is said to linger on the grounds, often seen in photographs as a shadowy figure wearing a green head wrap. Some visitors report hearing soft whispers, footsteps, or even catching glimpses of her ghost near the kitchen or along the veranda. The plantation's grand mirror, located in the main hallway, is another source of spine-chilling tales. It is said to trap the spirits of the children who died from the poisoned cake. Despite numerous attempts to clean it, handprints and smudges continually appear on the glass. Visitors who stand before the mirror for too long often claim to see figures standing behind them, though the hallway is empty. Another spirit said to haunt the Myrtles is William Winter, an attorney who lived on the plantation in the 1800s. One night, he was shot by an unknown assailant on the front porch. Clinging to life, Winter reportedly staggered into the house and climbed the staircase, collapsing on the 17th step. Some guests say they've heard his heavy, labored footsteps ascending the stairs, only to end abruptly, as if he's still reliving his final moments. The plantation is also known for unexplained phenomena that defy explanation. Lights flicker at random, furniture moves on its own, and doors slam shut without warning. Guests staying overnight in the plantation's converted bedrooms have reported hearing the faint sound of children's laughter echoing through the halls even when no children are present. Others have felt cold spots in the air, accompanied by the sensation of being watched. In one chilling account, a family staying at the plantation awoke to the sight of a woman standing at the foot of their bed, dressed in old-fashioned clothing. She didn't speak, didn't move, and vanished the moment they turned on the light. The experience was so unsettling that they left in the middle of the night. Over the years, paranormal investigators have flocked to the Myrtles plantation, capturing eerie evidence of its haunted reputation. EVPs, or electronic voice phenomena, have revealed ghostly whispers, including faint cries for help and unintelligible murmurs. Photographs taken on the property frequently reveal unexplained orbs, shadows, or even the faint outlines of figures standing in the windows. The Myrtles plantation is more than just a beautiful relic of the Old South. It's a place where the line between the living and the dead feels paper thin. For those who visit, the plantation offers not only a glimpse into a tragic history, but also an experience that lingers long after they leave. Would you dare to walk its halls? They say the spirits of the Myrtles don't mean harm, but one thing is certain once you visit. You'll never forget the feeling of being watched, even when you think you're alone. Haunting reflection. These places, the Stanley Hotel, Eastern State Penitentiary, and the Myrtles Plantation are more than just locations on a map. They are remnants of the past, where history and tragedy have imprinted themselves, so deeply that some believe they have transcended time. But what draws us to these places? Is it the thrill of the unknown? The hope of catching a glimpse of something beyond our understanding? Or is it simply our curiosity, pulling us toward the mysteries we can't explain? Ghosts or not, these locations hold stories that refuse to be forgotten. They remind us of the fragility of life, the weight of loss, and the power of the human imagination. Whether you believe in spirits or simply the echoes of history, there's no denying the pull of these haunted places. And perhaps, just perhaps, there's a part of you that wonders if these walls could talk. What would they say? Maybe they already are. So, would you dare to visit? Would you walk the halls of the Stanley Hotel, stand in the cold cells of Eastern State, or gaze into the mirror at the Myrtles plantation? One thing is certain, once you do, you'll never see the world the same way again. Because in places like these, the past doesn't just whisper, it waits. Diamonds are said to be a symbol of wealth, beauty, and power. But what if one diamond carried something far darker? A legacy of tragedy, ruin, and even death. The Hope Diamond, one of the most famous jewels in the world. Its deep blue brilliance has dazzled kings, queens, and collectors for centuries. But behind its beauty lies a chilling story. Those who have owned it faced misfortune that defies logic. Empires crumbled, families were destroyed, lives were lost. How could a single jewel bring so much chaos? Is it cursed, as the legends say? Or are we seeing a pattern where there is none? Tonight, we'll uncover the secrets of the Hope Diamond. Its origins, the lives it touched, and the dark trail it left in its wake. But beware sometimes, the more we dig into the past, the more the shadows begin to look back. The origins of the Hope Diamond. The story of the Hope Diamond begins deep in the heart of India, in the legendary Kolor mines. These mines, known for producing some of the world's most extraordinary gems, were believed to be sacred ground. Among the many treasures unearthed, there was an exceptional blue diamonda, 112-carat marvel that sparkled with an otherworldly brilliance. This stone, later known as the Tavernier blue, was acquired in the 17th century by Jean-Baptiste Tavernier, a French gem merchant and adventurer. Tavernier's accounts described it as an unparalleled gem, unmatched in beauty. But according to legend, the diamond was more than just a marvel of nature. It was said to have been plucked from the eye of a statue of the Hindu goddess Sita, a theft that enraged temple priests and led to the gem being cursed. The curse, as the story goes, promised doom to anyone who dared to claim the diamond as their own. While many dismiss this as folklore, Tavernier's later misfortune only fueled the legend. He returned to France a wealthy man after selling the diamond to King Louis XIV, but his story took a grim turn. One version claims he fell into financial ruin and died in poverty. Another, more gruesome account suggests he was mauled to death by wolves during a journey through Russia. In 1668, King Louis XIV, known as the Sun King, purchased the diamond from Tavernier. The king, fascinated by its rarity, commissioned his court jeweler to recut the stone, transforming it into the French blue. It became one of the crown jewels of France, worn during royal ceremonies and treasured as a symbol of wealth and power. However, the diamond's presence in the royal court coincided with a series of unfortunate events. Several of Louis XIV's heirs died young, leaving the throne vulnerable. While no direct link could be made between the deaths and the diamond, whispers of its curse began to circulate. After Louis XIV's death, the diamond passed to his successor, Louis XV, and later to Louis XVI and Queen Marie Antoinette. The queen frequently wore the French blue, often pairing it with other extravagant jewels. But as history unfolded, their association with the diamond took a dark turn. During the French Revolution, the monarchy collapsed, and Louis XVI and Marie Antoinette were executed by guillotine. Amid the chaos, the French blue disappeared, stolen, along with other crown jewels during the storming of the royal treasury in 1792. For decades, the diamond's fate remained a mystery. Some believe it was smuggled out of France and recut to disguise its identity. Others claim the curse itself ensured its disappearance, lying dormant as it waited for its next victim. What we do know is that the French blue eventually re-emerged, smaller, but unmistakable as the Hope Diamond. But by then, its legend as a cursed gem was firmly rooted in history, whispered about in hushed tones by those who dared to seek it. The Hope Diamond's origin is more than just a story of wealth and beauty. It's a tale of betrayal, ambition and consequences, a glittering stone with a shadowy past. Was the curse real, or was it merely a reflection of the greed and misfortune that followed its trail? Either way, the diamond's legacy was only just beginning. The French royal tragedies. The Hope Diamond, once transformed into the magnificent French blue, found its way into the heart of French royalty. Under King Louis XIV, the diamond was more than just a symbol of wealth. It was a statement of absolute power. The Sun King, as he was known, had the gem cut into a 67-carat triangular masterpiece, its deep blue hue captivating all who saw it. But as the diamond glittered in royal ceremonies, darker whispers began to emerge. The court murmured that the gem's origins were cursed, its brilliance a beacon for misfortune. And soon, tragedy seemed to follow in its wake. Louis XIV himself was not immune to the streak of misfortune that surrounded the French blue. Though he ruled France for over 72 years, his later years were marked by grief. Many of his legitimate heirs, including his son and grandson, died prematurely, leaving the monarchy vulnerable. By the time of his death in 1715, the Sun King's once mighty legacy was shadowed by loss and political instability. The diamond next adorned Louis XV, who had it mounted into a ceremonial pendant. While his reign brought moments of grandeur, it was also fraught with corruption and unrest. The French blue was often worn by Madame de Pompadour, his influential mistress, who herself fell from favor and suffered ill health before her untimely death. The diamond's darkest chapter, however, unfolded under Louis XVI and Queen Marie Antoinette. The young queen, known for her extravagant lifestyle, frequently wore the French blue alongside other dazzling jewels. To her, it was a symbol of the opulence and privilege of the French monarchy. But to the people of France, struggling under the weight of poverty and oppression, such displays of wealth became a target for resentment. As the French Revolution erupted in 1789, the monarchy was overthrown and the royal family was imprisoned. Louis XVI and Marie Antoinette faced trial and were executed by guillotine, their lives ending in humiliation and horror. The French blue, once a prized possession, became a cursed relic, its association with the fallen monarchy forever tainted. Amid the chaos of the revolution, the diamond vanished. In 1792, revolutionaries looted the royal treasury, stealing the crown jewels, including the French blue. While most of the jewels were recovered or destroyed, the French blue disappeared without a trace. Some say it was smuggled out of France, sold to foreign collectors to fund the revolution. Others believe it was deliberately hidden, its ominous reputation sparking fear even among thieves. The disappearance of the French blue only added to its legend. For decades, its whereabouts were unknown, but whispers of a deep blue diamond matching its description began to surface in London in the early 19th century. When the gem eventually re-emerged, it was smaller, having been recut perhaps to conceal its identity and renamed the Hope Diamond. The French royal tragedies left an indelible mark on the diamond's history. For some, it was simply a witness to the turbulent downfall of the monarchy. For others, it was an active participant, its curse weaving a dark thread through the lives of those who dared to possess it. Was the French blue truly cursed, or was it merely a symbol of the excess and greed that sealed the fate of the French monarchy? The answer remains as elusive as the diamond's early years. But one thing is certain, the tragedies that surrounded the French blue only deepened its reputation as a jewel, to be both admired and feared. The diamond resurfaces and spreads. Misfortune. Decades after the French Revolution, the infamous diamond, once known as the French blue, re-emerged, shrouded in mystery. By the early 19th century, rumors began to circulate about a smaller, but equally mesmerizing, deep blue diamond that had surfaced in London. It was clear that the original gem had been recut, likely to obscure its royal origins. By the time it entered public record again, it had a new name, the Hope Diamond, named after its owner, wealthy London banker Henry Philip Hope. The Hope family proudly displayed the diamond as a symbol of their immense wealth, but misfortune soon followed. Despite their affluence, the family began to experience financial difficulties. By the time Henry's nephew inherited the diamond, the family's fortune was dwindling. Eventually, they were forced to sell the gem to cover mounting debts. This marked the beginning of a troubling pattern. Nearly everyone who owned the diamond afterward would face ruin. One of its next owners, a French gem dealer named Jacques Collot, reportedly fell into a deep depression after acquiring the diamond. Some say he went mad, eventually taking his own life. While records from this time are scarce, the tale adds to the diamond's sinister reputation. In the late 19th century, the diamond passed into the hands of Sultan Abdul Hamid II of the Ottoman Empire. Known as the Red Sultan, Abdul Hamid was a controversial figure, infamous for his authoritarian rule. He acquired the diamond during a period of intense political strife, hoping it would serve as a symbol of his power. But shortly after adding it to his collection, he was deposed in a coup, marking the end of his reign. Another notable chapter in the diamond's dark history involves Simon Frankel, a New York jeweler who acquired it in the early 20th century. Frankel's business suffered financial collapse shortly after obtaining the gem, forcing him to sell it. The Hope Diamond seemed to leave a trail of destruction wherever it went. But perhaps one of the most tragic stories linked to the diamond is that of Evelyn Walsh McLean. a wealthy socialite in Washington, D.C. who purchased the diamond in 1911, Evelyn was captivated by the gem's beauty and the drama of its history. She even viewed its alleged curse as a kind of challenge, believing that it would bring her luck instead of tragedy. At first, the Hope Diamond seemed to fulfill her hopes. Evelyn often wore the gem to lavish parties, delighting in the attention it brought. But her life soon took a darker turn. Her young son was tragically killed in a car accident. Her daughter died of a drug overdose, and her husband left her for another woman before succumbing to insanity. By the end of her life, Evelyn was deeply in debt and forced to sell her prized possessions, including the Hope Diamond. The diamond changed hands several more times, before landing in the possession of Harry Winston, a prominent American jeweler. Winston, perhaps understanding the gem's controversial history, decided not to keep it for himself. Instead, he donated the Hope Diamond to the Smithsonian Institution in 1958, ensuring its safety as a public treasure. Even its journey to the Smithsonian wasn't free from misfortune. The man who delivered the diamond, postal worker James Todd, reportedly suffered a series of personal tragedies afterward, including a car accident, a house fire, and the loss of his pet dog. Through the centuries, the Hope Diamond has brought untold beauty and fascination, but also an undeniable streak of misfortune, whether its curse is real or a product of coincidence and human greed. Its legacy remains as brilliant and dark as the gem itself. Each new owner believed they could escape its shadow, and each, in their own way, proved that the Hope Diamond isn't just a jewel, it's a story, one that continues to haunt those who dare to claim it. Harry Winston and the Smithsonian. By the mid-20th century, the Hope Diamond had earned a reputation not just as a masterpiece of nature, but as an object of ominous legend. Its long trail of misfortune seemed unstoppable, leaving every owner in financial ruin, despair, or worse. Enter Harry Winston, one of the most famous jewelers in America, who saw the diamond not as a cursed relic, but as an opportunity to give it a new chapter in its story. In 1949, Winston acquired the Hope Diamond from Evelyn Walsh, McLean's estate after her death. Evelyn had been one of the diamond's most famous owners, but her life had ended in tragedy, deepening the diamond's cursed reputation. Winston, however, seemed immune to the fears surrounding the gem. Instead of keeping it in his personal collection or selling it to another private buyer, he made a bold decision: he would donate it to the Smithsonian Institution, turning it into a public treasure for all to admire. For nearly a decade, Winston toured the diamond across the United States as part of his Court of Jewels exhibition, raising funds for charity and promoting the beauty of his collection. Millions of people saw the Hope Diamond during this time, and its legend continued to grow. Winston's decision to donate the diamond wasn't purely altruistic. He believed that placing it in the Smithsonian would help establish the museum as a premier destination for gems and minerals, ensuring that its brilliance and its curse would be contained. In 1958, Winston made good on his promise. He sent the 45.52-carat gem to the Smithsonian Institution, but his method of delivery became a story in itself. Despite the diamond's estimated value of over $200 million today, Winston shipped it via the U.S. Postal Service. The diamond was placed in a simple brown paper package insured for $1 million and sent with a modest 2x44 postage fee. The package arrived safely, but the story didn't end there. The postal worker who delivered the diamond, James Todd, reportedly experienced a series of bizarre misfortunes after handling it. Shortly after the delivery, Todd suffered a leg injury in a truck accident. His house burned down and his dog tragically died. While skeptics dismissed these events as coincidence, they only added to the diamond's cursed reputation. Once at the Smithsonian, the Hope Diamond became the centerpiece of the National Gem Collection. Encased in a specially designed display, its deep blue brilliance drew millions of visitors each year. The diamond's aura of mystery, combined with its stunning beauty, made it one of the most famous and infamous jewels in the world. But what about the curse? Did donating the diamond finally lift its dark shadow? Some believe that Winston's generous act neutralized the curse, shifting its energy from a private burden to a public wonder. Others argue that the Smithsonian itself, as a federal institution, became an unlikely shield, dispersing the curse across millions of people who merely gazed at it. To this day, the Hope Diamond remains safely housed at the Smithsonian Institution in Washington, D.C., captivating visitors with its history, beauty, and mystery. Whether it's a cursed gem or simply a stunning artifact, with an unlucky legacy, one thing is clear. The Hope Diamond's story continues to spark fascination and debate. Harry Winston's decision to share the Hope Diamond with the world transformed it from a symbol of misfortune to an enduring legend. And perhaps in doing so, he proved that even the darkest stories can have a glimmer of hope. So what do you think? Is the Hope Diamond truly cursed? Or is it just a sparkling scapegoat for a series of very bad coincidences? One thing's for sure, this jewel isn't just a piece of history, it's a magnet for mystery, drama, and intrigue. Whether it's royalty losing their heads, sultans losing their thrones, or even mailmen losing their luck, the diamond has left quite the trail. And let's be honest, if someone offered you the Hope Diamond today, would you take it? Sure, it's worth millions, but would you risk the sleepless nights, suspicious glances, and the endless what-ifs? Maybe the real curse of the Hope Diamond isn't misfortune at all, it's the way it gets under your skin, making you question if you'd be the one to finally break the cycle or fall victim to it. Thanks for joining me on this glittering, spine-chilling journey. And remember, sometimes the most dangerous things aren't the ones hiding in the shadows, they're the ones that shine the brightest.
Time. It's the one thing we can't control, always moving forward, slipping through our fingers. But what if that wasn't true? What if time isn't as linear as we've always believed? Imagine waking up in a world you don't recognize, surrounded by technology centuries ahead of your own, or walking through an ancient ruin and stumbling upon something that shouldn't exist. These aren't just the plots of movies, they're real stories, claims, and artifacts that challenge everything we think we know about time. Tonight we'll dive into the most compelling evidence of time travel. Stories so strange, so detailed that even skeptics have been left speechless. So let me ask you, if time travel is real, where would you go? Or has someone already visited us? In the early days of the internet, back in November 2000, a user appeared on an obscure forum with a message that would captivate and baffle the world. His name was John Titor, and he claimed to be a time traveler from the year 2036. His mission? To retrieve an IBM 5100 computer from 1975, a machine he said was critical for debugging software in his future. Titor's posts were not the ramblings of an ordinary hoaxer. They were meticulous, detailed, and disturbingly plausible. He explained how his time machine worked, describing it as a stationary mass temporal displacement unit powered by two rotating singularities. These singularities, he said, created a Kerr black hole, a concept that aligns with theoretical physics. Titor even included diagrams, complete with schematics of his machine, mounted inside a 1987 Chevrolet. What made John Titor's story even more compelling were his predictions. He spoke of a fragmented America, torn apart by internal conflict, and a devastating world war that would drastically reshape global powers. While many of his specific predictions, like a civil war breaking out in 2005, didn't come true, others were eerily accurate. He warned of increasing societal division, an event that many believe aligns with the growing polarization in politics and culture today. Titor's posts weren't just about doom and gloom, he also provided cryptic insights into his timeline. He described a world where community and survival were paramount, and technology was used less for convenience and more for necessity. He even answered questions from forum users, offering advice on everything from avoiding future disasters to investing in technologies that would become essential in his time. Skeptics were quick to dismiss Titor as a clever storyteller, but his deep knowledge of the IBM 5100 raised eyebrows. The IBM 5100, as Titor claimed, had unique emulation capabilities that were not publicly known until years after his posts. This revelation left even the harshest critics questioning how an anonymous internet user could have known such a specific detail about a long, obsolete computer. But like all good mysteries, John Titor's story came to an abrupt end. In March 2001, he posted for the last time, claiming he had completed his mission and was returning to 2036. His final message was cryptic, warning humanity to look to the sky for answers, not the ground. And then he vanished, leaving behind no trace of his identity or existence. Since then, Titor's story has taken on a life of its own, inspiring books, documentaries, and endless debates. Some believe he was an elaborate hoaxer, using his posts as a form of interactive storytelling. Others are convinced he was genuine, a traveler from a parallel timeline who offered a glimpse into an alternate future. The question remains, who was John Titor? Was he a genius with a wild imagination, or was he exactly what he claimed to be? A visitor from the future. His story endures not because we know the answer, but because we don't. And perhaps that's exactly what he intended. Time travel stories often come with a curious trail of breadcrumbs, objects that shouldn't exist in the time or place where they're found. These so-called out-of-place artifacts have puzzled historians, archaeologists, and scientists for decades. Could they be evidence of time travelers leaving behind traces of their journeys? Or are they merely misunderstood relics of our own past? One of the most famous examples is the Antikythera mechanism. Discovered in 1901 among the wreckage of an ancient Greek ship, this bronze device dates back to around 200 BCE. Its intricate gears and dials were used to predict astronomical events with astonishing precision. But here's the mystery. Its design and complexity rival technology that didn't reappear until the 14th century. How could such an advanced device exist over 1,000 years before its time? Was it the work of a brilliant ancient engineer, or did someone bring this knowledge from the future? Another perplexing case emerged in 2008 during the excavation of a sealed Chinese tomb from the Ming dynasty. Inside, archaeologists discovered a small object resembling a modern Swiss watch. The artifact, a tiny ring-like object with 1006 frozen on its face, appeared embedded in centuries-old soil. How could a 400-year-old tomb contain something that looked like a 20th century timepiece? While skeptics argue it was a hoax, no one has definitively explained its presence in the sealed tomb. The story of the Baghdad Battery is another enigma. These clay jars, dating back to ancient Mesopotamia around 250 BCE, contain copper cylinders and iron rods. When filled with an acidic substance like vinegar, they can produce a small electric charge. Though many believe these jars were used for electroplating, others wonder, could they have been a primitive version of modern batteries? If so, who taught the ancient Mesopotamians to harness electricity? And then there's the mysterious hammer found embedded in a rock in London, Texas. The hammer, encased in a stone formation over 100 million years old, defies all logic. The wooden handle had partially petrified, and the hammer's metal head contained an alloy so pure it couldn't have been forged with 19th century technology, let alone in prehistoric times. Was it simply a bizarre natural occurrence, or did it hint at something or someone out of place? These artifacts, while fascinating, don't just raise questions about time travel, they also challenge our understanding of history. For example, the Voynich manuscript, a book written in an unknown language and filled with strange, unidentifiable illustrations, has been dated to the early 15th century. Despite decades of analysis, no one has deciphered its text or explained its purpose. Some theorize it's a guide for time travelers, filled with symbols and knowledge incomprehensible to those outside its intended audience. Skeptics argue that out-of-place artifacts can often be explained by natural phenomena, human error, or clever hoaxes. But what about the cases that defy explanation? Could they be the accidental remains of travelers who ventured too far into the past or even the future? One thing is clear, these artifacts, whether misunderstood relics or genuine anomalies, remind us how much we have yet to uncover about our world and about time itself. They make us question whether we are truly the first explorers of history, or if others have been here before, quietly leaving behind clues that they existed. The internet is full of mysteries, but few are as captivating or as entertaining as the idea that some celebrities might be time travelers. From eerily familiar faces in vintage photographs to odd sightings that defy explanation, these stories blend the surreal with the plausible, leaving us wondering, could these famous figures be more than they seem? One of the most famous examples is the 19th century photograph of a man who looks strikingly similar to Nicolas Cage. The sepia-toned image, unearthed by a collector, shows a man with the same distinctive features: his eyes, his hairline, even his expression. Cage himself jokingly addressed the claim, but the resemblance is so uncanny that it has fueled countless theories. Is this just a doppelganger, or could Cage have traveled through time, leaving behind this photographic evidence? Then there's the story of John Travolta. A photograph from the 1860s depicts a man whose features are virtually identical to the actor's. From the shape of his jaw to the set of his eyes, the likeness is undeniable. Could this be proof of time travel, or just a remarkable coincidence? Even beyond photographs, there are more modern examples. A clip from Charlie Chaplin's 1928 film The Circus appears to show a woman walking through a crowd holding what looks like a cell phone to her ear, decades before mobile phones were invented. Skeptics suggest it could be a hearing aid, but the way she gestures and appears to be speaking into the device feels uncannily familiar to modern viewers. Another eerie tale involves Keanu Reeves. Internet sleuths have compiled a list of historical figures who bear an astonishing resemblance to the actor, including the French painter Paul Monet, who mysteriously disappeared in the early 20th century. Fans have humorously dubbed Reeves immortal, pointing out that he seems to age at a suspiciously slow pace. And it's not just Hollywood stars. Historical accounts sometimes describe individuals with knowledge or behavior that seems out of sync with their era. For instance, in the 1500s, the philosopher Nostradamus was said to have predicted events far beyond his time. While his writings are often vague, some wonder if his uncanny foresight was more than just intuition. But the most intriguing celebrity time traveler theory comes from the case of Andrew Carlson. In 2003, Carlson was arrested for insider trading after turning an $800 investment into $350 million in just 2 weeks. His defense? He claimed to be a time traveler from 2256, using knowledge of future stock trends. Though he promised to reveal information about cures for diseases and hidden treasures if released, Carlson vanished before his claims could be verified, leaving behind only questions. Skeptics dismiss these stories as coincidences or misinterpretations. They argue that human features are bound to repeat over time, given the vast number of people who've lived throughout history. But the sheer number of these cases, combined with the peculiar details surrounding them, keeps the mystery alive. What if these aren't coincidences? What if some of the most iconic figures in history and entertainment aren't just talented or lucky, but travelers who've seen more than we can imagine? As fun as it is to speculate, these stories remind us of one thing: time and its mysteries has a way of captivating us. Whether it's through photographs, films, or strange tales, the idea that someone could step through time is one we can't seem to resist. Time travel has long been a favorite subject of science fiction, but it's not just writers and dreamers who ponder the idea. Some of the greatest minds in physics have explored the possibility. And while the concept still lives mostly in the realm of theory, the science behind it is more grounded than you might think. The foundation of time travel lies in Albert Einstein's theory of relativity. Einstein revealed that time is not a constant, it's flexible, affected by speed and gravity. This phenomenon, known as time dilation, has been proven through experiments. In 1971, scientists flew atomic clocks aboard commercial airplanes while keeping identical clocks on the ground. When the clocks were compared, the ones on the planes showed a tiny but measurable difference. They had experienced time more slowly. But this kind of time travel is subtle, measured in fractions of a second. What about traveling years into the past or future? This is where theoretical physics introduces the concept of wormholes. Wormholes are hypothetical tunnels in space-time, connecting two distant points. If one end of a wormhole could be accelerated to near the speed of light or placed in a strong gravitational field, time could pass differently at each end, creating a potential pathway for time travel. The late physicist Kip Thorne, known for his work on Interstellar, was one of the first to mathematically explore the idea of traversable wormholes. Thorne's calculations showed that, under specific conditions, such structures could theoretically allow time travel. However, the energy required to stabilize a wormhole, negative energy, remains beyond our current technological capabilities. Another concept that sparks the imagination is the idea of closed time-like curves. Proposed by Kurt Gödel, a closed time-like curve is a solution to Einstein's equations that would allow an object to loop back to its own past. These curves could, in theory, exist in universes that rotate, but as of now, no evidence of such universes has been found. Quantum mechanics also plays a role in the discussion. The many worlds interpretation suggests that each decision creates a new branch of reality, a parallel universe. In this framework, traveling to the past wouldn't change the future of your own timeline, but would instead create a new, alternate one. This idea might resolve the classic grandfather paradox, where a time traveler could theoretically prevent their own existence by altering the past. There's also the lesser-known concept of time travel through cosmic strings, infinitely long, incredibly dense threads of energy left over from the early universe. The immense gravitational pull of these strings could warp space-time, creating conditions that might allow for time travel. Scientists like J. Richard Gott have speculated that if two cosmic strings pass near each other at high speeds, they could create a time loop. But even if the physics allows for time travel, there's another challenge: paradoxes. The grandfather paradox, as mentioned earlier, and other logical inconsistencies suggest that time travel to the past may be fundamentally impossible. Stephen Hawking himself argued for a chronology protection conjecture, a theoretical principle that would prevent time travel to the past in order to preserve the consistency of the universe. And yet the idea persists. Advances in our understanding of black holes, quantum mechanics, and the fabric of space-time continue to push the boundaries of what's possible. In 2020, scientists at the University of Queensland used mathematical models to simulate time travel. Their results suggested that even if a time traveler were to alter events in the past, the timeline would self-correct, avoiding paradoxes altogether. So, is time travel possible? The answer is still unclear. For now, it remains a tantalizing combination of theoretical physics and speculative thought. But as history has shown, today's impossibilities often become tomorrow's breakthroughs. If the laws of physics allow for time travel, the question becomes, who will be the first to build the machine? And perhaps the more unsettling question is, have they already done it? So what have we learned tonight? Time travel might still be theoretical, but the evidence, the stories, the artifacts, the physics is enough to make you wonder, is it really impossible? Or are we just not ready to see it yet? Maybe the time travelers are already here, blending into our world, quietly observing, or maybe they're us from a distant future, watching their own history unfold. And hey, if time travel ever becomes a reality, here's a thought. Wouldn't it be funny if one of you watching this video right now is already a time traveler? If that's the case, you could at least leave us a hint in the comments, right? But until then, remember, time is precious, whether you're stuck in the present or bouncing between centuries. Thanks for watching, and who knows, maybe we'll meet again someday, or already have. Have you ever been certain, absolutely certain about something, only to find out you were completely wrong? We're not talking about misplacing your keys or forgetting an appointment. I'm talking about a vivid, unshakable memory that turns out to be completely false. Like, maybe it's the name of a favorite childhood book, a famous movie line, or even a historical event you're positive you remember clearly. Now imagine this, thousands, even millions of people sharing that same false memory. Is it mass hysteria or something far stranger? This isn't just forgetfulness or confusion, it's called the Mandela Effect. The name itself is a clue referencing the widespread belief that Nelson Mandela died in prison in the 1980s, when in fact he lived until 2013. How could so many people share the same incorrect memory? Some say it's just our minds playing tricks on us. Others believe it's something much bigger. Alternate realities, time travelers, or even glitches in the very fabric of the universe. Could reality itself be shifting beneath our feet? Or is there a perfectly rational explanation? Let's find out, if we can trust our memories, that is. Let's start with a classic example of the Mandela Effect, the Berenstain Bears. Many remember it as Berenstain Bears with an E, but officially it's always been Berenstain with an A. Is it a simple misspelling or a glitch in the matrix? Are we glimpsing into parallel universes with subtle differences? Or are our memories more malleable than we think? Maybe in another dimension, the Berenstain Bears reign supreme. Or could it be that our memories are simply more malleable than we think? Our brains process information, filling in gaps and altering memories. Influenced by common misspellings, our brains might alter memories to fit familiar patterns. We often remember the gist rather than exact details. Our brains prioritize meaning over minutiae, so while we might recall reading about a family of bears, the exact spelling might get lost. But how could so many share the same false memory? Is it coincidence or something more profound? The Berenstain of Berenstain debate is just the tip of the iceberg in the Mandela Effect. Few movie lines are as iconic as Darth Vader's earth-shattering revelation to Luke Skywalker in The Empire Strikes Back. It's a line etched in our collective consciousness, a moment of cinematic history that sent chills down our spines. But what if I told you that the line we all remember so vividly is wrong? Ask almost anyone to recite Darth Vader's revelation, and they'll confidently say, "Luke, I am your father." It's the way we've always heard it, the way it's endlessly quoted and parodied. But the truth, my friends, is far more intriguing. The actual line, spoken by James Earl Jones in that chillingly deep voice, is, "No, I am your father." Go back and watch the scene. You'll be surprised. This discrepancy has baffled Star Wars fans and casual viewers alike, leaving many to wonder how such a famous line could be so widely misremembered. How do we explain this discrepancy? Some point to the power of suggestion. The misquote, "Luke, I am your father," became ingrained in popular culture. Our brains latch on to the more dramatic misquote. "Luke, I am your father" has a dramatic flair. For Mandela Effect believers, it suggests alternate realities. Could it be from a parallel universe? Are we glimpsing alternate realities? Or witnessing human memory's fallibility? The truth remains elusive. The human mind is a fascinating instrument, isn't it? We pride ourselves on our powers of observation, our ability to recall details with astonishing clarity. Yet sometimes our memories play tricks on us, leading us down a rabbit hole of fabricated details. Take the Monopoly Man, for instance. This iconic character, with his top hat, moustache, and that smug grin, is etched into our collective consciousness. And for many, that image includes a monocle perched upon his right eye, a symbol of wealth and refinement. But here's the curious thing. The Monopoly Man has never worn a monocle. Not in any official artwork, not on any game board, not even once. It's a detail that feels so right, so instinctively true, that many find it hard to accept otherwise. So how do we explain this discrepancy, this phantom monocle that seems to exist only in our minds? Our memories aren't perfect recordings of the past. They're more like reconstructions pieced together from fragments of information influenced by our biases, expectations, and even the information we encounter after the event. This phenomenon, known as false memory, is incredibly common. It's our brain's attempt to fill in the gaps, to create a coherent narrative, even if that means inventing details that were never there. In the case of the Monopoly Man, our brains might be drawing upon cultural stereotypes, associating wealth and power with monocles and seamlessly integrating this detail into our memory. Or perhaps it's a case of misattribution, where we've encountered a monocle in a different context, maybe in a cartoon or another fictional character, and our brains have mistakenly linked it to the Monopoly Man. Whatever the reason, the phantom monocle serves as a stark reminder that our memories, while powerful, are not infallible. They're malleable, susceptible to suggestion, and prone to errors. Let's delve into the world of branding and logos, where companies spend millions, even billions, to etch their mark in the minds of consumers. A successful logo is instantly recognizable, evoking a sense of familiarity and trust. And few logos are as seemingly straightforward as Fruit of the Loom. The name itself conjures up vivid imagery, ripe fruits bursting with flavor, a symbol of nature's bounty. For many, this imagery extends to the logo itself, with a cornucopia, that overflowing basket of fruit taking center stage. It makes perfect sense, right? What better way to represent the abundance and the variety of their products? But hold on a minute, take a closer look. The cornucopia is nowhere to be found. The actual logo features a simple stylized apple with a leaf. No overflowing fruits, no wicker basket, just a solitary apple. So how did this cornucopia become so deeply ingrained in our collective memory? Our brains are wired to make connections, to find patterns and associations even where none exist. This ability is essential for learning and survival, but it can also lead us astray. In the case of the Fruit of the Loom logo, several factors might be at play. The name itself, Fruit of the Loom, is inherently suggestive of abundance, a concept often visually represented by a cornucopia. This association is so strong, so deeply embedded in our cultural lexicon, that our brains might be superimposing the cornucopia onto the logo, even though it was never there. Furthermore, the brand's product line, primarily underwear and clothing, doesn't immediately scream cornucopia. This mismatch between the name, the product, and the imagined logo creates a cognitive dissonance, a sense of unease that can make the Mandela Effect so perplexing. Fairy tales, those timeless stories, passed down through generations, hold a special place in our hearts. They transport us to magical worlds, introduce us to unforgettable characters, and often impart valuable life lessons. But what happens when our memories of these cherished stories begin to unravel? Consider the classic line from Snow White, Mirror, Mirror on the Wall. Who's the fairest of them all? It's a line etched into our collective consciousness, a phrase uttered countless times by children and adults alike. The image is vivid. The evil queen, consumed by vanity, demanding validation from her enchanted mirror. But here's the catch. The actual line, spoken by the evil queen in Disney's animated masterpiece, is Magic Mirror on the Wall, who is the fairest one of all? Notice the subtle but significant difference. It's not mirror, mirror, but magic mirror. A seemingly minor detail, yet it throws the entire memory into disarray. The Mandela Effect is often most pronounced with pop culture references, particularly those we encounter during childhood. Our young minds, eager to absorb information and make sense of the world, are especially susceptible to suggestion and misremembering. In the case of the mirror phrase, the repetition itself might be the culprit. The rhythmic cadence of mirror, mirror simply sounds right, rolling off the tongue with a certain poetic flair. It's a phrase that begs to be repeated, further cementing it in our minds, even if it's not entirely accurate. Moreover, the misquote has been perpetuated through countless adaptations, parodies, and casual conversations. The more we encounter the incorrect phrase, the more likely we are to accept it as truth, our own memories blurring with each retelling. This phenomenon highlights the social nature of memory. We don't just rely on our own recollections, we also rely on the memories of others, especially when it comes to shared cultural experiences. Peanut butter, a staple in pantries across the cosmos. It's a delicious spread enjoyed by all ages. But what if I told you Jiffy peanut butter never existed? It's actually called Jif. Is this a simple case of misremembering, or something more at play? Now you might be thinking, Neil, it's just a name. Why does it matter? And you know what? You're not wrong, it's just peanut butter after all. But this isn't just about peanut butter. This is about the power of branding and how our brains store information. Think about it. Brands spend millions, if not billions of dollars to create memorable names and logos. They want their products to be instantly recognizable, to stand out on the shelves. And for the most part, they succeed. We can all picture the Coca-Cola logo, the McDonald's golden arches, the Nike swoosh. These images are burned into our brains, sometimes without us even realizing it. So is it so far-fetched to believe that our brains might also hold on to brand names that never actually existed, especially if they sound very similar to real ones? It's a fascinating phenomenon, and one that speaks to the incredible power of the human mind. We are constantly bombarded with information, and our brains have developed incredible ways to filter and store it all. But sometimes those filters malfunction, leading to these strange and intriguing memory discrepancies. From the heart of the jungle to the bustling city, Curious George, that mischievous monkey, has captured the hearts of generations. We've followed his adventures as he swings from skyscrapers, explores museums, and generally wreaks havoc with childlike innocence. But what if I told you that a crucial part of George's anatomy, a feature many of us remember vividly, never actually existed? I'm talking, of course, about Curious George's tail. Yes, you heard that right. Despite countless people claiming to remember George sporting a long, expressive tail, the reality is that he's always been, well, tailless. This absence is particularly perplexing given that most monkeys, George's real-life counterparts, possess prominent tails used for balance and navigating their arboreal homes. So how do we explain this discrepancy? Is it a collective misremembering on a massive scale? Or could there be something more at play, something that calls into question our very understanding of reality itself? This, my friends, is where we venture into the perplexing realm of the Mandela Effect, named after the mistaken belief that Nelson Mandela died in prison in the 1980s. Could these shared memories point to parallel universes? Or are our brains filling in gaps with logical yet inaccurate information? Curious George's missing tail reminds us that perception may not always align with reality. And that, my friends, is a truly fascinating thought. From the moment Pikachu first appeared on our TV screens, that electric rodent captured the hearts of a generation. He zapped his way through countless battles, evolving from a humble companion to a global icon. But what if I told you that a key detail of Pikachu's iconic design, a feature etched in the minds of millions, never actually existed? I'm talking, of course, about the black tip on Pikachu's tail. Now, I know what you're thinking, Neil, are you sure? I can practically see it now, that black tip contrasting against the vibrant yellow of his tail. And that's precisely what makes this particular example of the Mandela Effect so fascinating. Despite countless fans claiming to remember the black tip with absolute certainty, official artwork and animation consistently depict Pikachu with a solid yellow tail. There's no black tip to be found. So how do we explain this discrepancy? Is it simply a case of mass misremembering fueled by nostalgia and the passage of time? Or could there be something more to it, something that speaks to the malleable nature of memory and perception? Our brains fill in blanks with logical details, especially for beloved childhood icons. We associate black tips with other electric-type Pokemon, projecting that feature onto Pikachu. Perhaps in a parallel universe, a Pikachu with a black-tipped tail exists. Whatever the explanation, Pikachu's missing black tip reminds us that memories aren't always accurate. And that, my friends, is a truly electrifying thought. Now, we're used to thinking about the Earth as this fixed, unchanging thing, but remember, our planet is a dynamic, ever-evolving system. Continents drift, mountains rise and fall. That brings us to New Zealand. Some remember it northeast of Australia, but it's actually southeast. So what's going on here? Parallel reality or just a memory glitch? Maps can be tricky, projections distort, scales mislead. People are passionate about New Zealand's location. Memory is a reconstruction, not an exact recording. Our brains fill gaps, smooth inconsistencies. Maybe it's a cosmic quirk like dark matter or parallel universes. Geography reminds us there's always more to discover and more to wonder about. From shifting continents, we turn our attention now to the realm of music, where memories are often intertwined with emotion and shared experience. And few songs evoke the feeling of triumph quite like Queen's iconic anthem, We Are the Champions. Picture this. You're at a stadium concert, tens of thousands of voices singing in unison. Freddie Mercury's electrifying stage presence commanding the crowd. As the song reaches its crescendo, the final defiant words ring out, "We are the champions of the world." Except that's not how the original song ends. Go back and listen to the studio recording, the one etched into the annals of music history. You'll find that the song simply fades out after "We are the champions," leaving a sense of open-ended celebration rather than a definitive declaration of global dominance. So why do so many people vividly remember that extra line? Did we collectively rewrite history, adding our own grand finale to an already iconic song? Or is this another example of the Mandela Effect at work, a subtle shift in our shared reality? Now, some might argue that this is simply a matter of misheard lyrics, but the Mandela Effect goes beyond simple misinterpretations. It's about shared false memories, a collective remembering of things that never actually happened. How can large groups of people share the same false memories? Some researchers believe that the power of suggestion plays a significant role. Information spreads like wildfire, blurring the line between fact and fiction. Maybe our memories exist in a state of quantum superposition, flickering between possibilities. The Mandela Effect might be a glimpse into other realities. So, is the Mandela Effect just a quirk of our memory, or is it proof that reality isn't as stable as we think? Are we simply misremembering, or have we all taken a wrong turn in the multiverse and ended up here? One thing's for sure, the Mandela Effect has us questioning everything. Our memories, our reality, and whether Pikachu's tail really did have that black tip. Spoiler, it didn't. But hey, if this is a glitch in the Matrix, maybe it's not so bad after all. Wouldn't it be nice to think there's a version of reality where we always make the right choices, always get our coffee orders correct, and Berenstein still has that E. Thanks for watching and diving into the mysteries of the Mandela Effect with me. And if this video disappears tomorrow, or the title suddenly changes, well, maybe you're not imagining things after all. Stay curious, question everything, and remember, in this reality or any other, the fun part is in the mystery.